Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nuganomics with David Toulis.
There's a powerful method of surveillance under development by a company called Persistent Surveillance Systems. The CEO, the founder, is a man named Ross McNutt, and he made a pitch to Dayton, Ohio, promising to reduce crime by having high over the city a plane circling 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 miles up that would shoot down a series of cameras that would have constantly in view the whole city and large swaths of the city. Ross McNutt was teaching at the Air Force Institute on Technology at the time, and when he devised this system, which came out of a conversation in a restaurant with a drawing on a napkin, invariably, he had the idea of aiding U.S. troops against guerrilla tactics and against those who planted IEDs, improvised explosive devices, along the sides of roads in U.S. occupied territories in the desert country, and so he has a scheme whereby a plane is constantly flying overhead and snapping pictures over and over and over again. So what happens is if there's a crime, one simply has to rewind the scenes that are in view from above, rewind them, and find out where the car went, where the man may have been before the crime occurred, where he went before that. Maybe one can find where he may have met someone prior to the crime, the thing that's in view as a possible subject of interest. And what Persistent Surveillance Systems does, it offers a top-down view of local economy. But of course, it doesn't care about local economy. The people in rows behind these very large PC screens don't care about the life of the people there. They are looking at everything as a potential area of disturbance, an area of special interest, an area that needs to be brought into the realm of the security world, right? Security, whether police, whether sheriff's deputy, whether special forces or other, depending on who's paying the bills at the moment, what kind of contracts have been let for that service. Dayton did not agree to hire this service, partly on account of a very small minority of vocal people who said, no, we don't want that. We don't want what it implies. It implies total surveillance of everybody, all traffic, everybody with a package under his arm going from one car to a building, coming out later. There's a constant record of everybody's doings, and only the people of interest are only those who are potential criminals, right? People who are in view from some crime having been committed. This would reduce security if we had the system going. McNutt told officials at the time, the system can reduce crime in Dayton by 20% or 30%. He said it would save a yearly savings of $96 million to $144 million in supposedly in the solving of crimes or the reduction of crimes, because people know that there is an eye in the sky. Well, it's a top-down view of local economy. And what I'm urging you, my listener, to do here at Nuganomics.com is not think in terms of the top-down view, not the bird's eye view with here we have the surveillance interest attached to it, but rather living there in the street, in the building whose rooftops would be in view only of the camera with the puddle drying there on that flat rooftop. The puddle is slowly drying, and it shows up in every picture. Every 5 seconds, the picture shows that building in context of all the other buildings, with the puddle getting slightly smaller every time. And of course, if you speed it up, a sequence of those pictures, you would see the puddle eventually from the point of it would be enlarging actually as it reached back into time closer to the time of the rainfall. Well, my name is David Toulis, and we want not to have an antiseptic and sociological view of local economy, though when we read stories such as this one, which was at news.com, full of typos. I noticed it was a story that had several mistakes in it. It was on the technology section, describing this system of Orwellian proportions. we want to understand that while there may be people with cameras and TV screens watching from above, even from satellites, right? These are from lenses outside the prospect of anyone taking a breath of the air or of the atmosphere immediately near that lens. We here are in Chattanooga, and we're on the ground, and we have an odd connection with the ground. When you look at people and we think of human life in the context of surveillance, no one belongs anywhere. Everyone looks like it's little ant cars moving along, the little dots, which are people moving about, congregating, dispersing. One looks at that and one can't believe there's any human interest in there. There are simply these little automatic figures that move about, and there's no sympathy at all. These are totally objectified people, and society is totally objectified. Everyone is just an object or a dot. It is somewhat like pornography, where people don't have souls, don't have interests, they're not actually people anymore. They're just sort of biological machines grinding away. The picture, though, is of the searching gaze of the state, and is there a prospect of the searching gaze of the state somehow being turned off? Is there a prospect that there can be a change in relations among people, especially those people whom we call the good people at the top, whereby they leave us alone, where they don't propose systems such as this, where they don't try to develop them? Even notice how that system came out of war, because the American adventurers in Washington are always at war. They're constantly having to innovate to help kill people or to help prevent their people from being killed. And now we're going to bring it over here. There's always a domesticization, if you will, of warfare brought home. So it's not warfare anymore. It is just surveillance, just a dreary sort of surveillance. This anonymizing activity where where you are really nothing, and there is no life. There's no human purpose for anything. There's just potential criminality, and we are waiting for something to happen, or to get that phone call or that email about some aberration in human conduct that we now we can get busy. We can actually start doing something, as opposed we here in this surveillance crew just sitting around watching. We don't have to do that. We can actually start doing something. Well, there's a philosopher named Proudhon, Pierre-Joseph Proudhon, a Frenchman, who has a picture of this, which I think he may have gotten some of his ideas from the writer Brutus, who was opposing the passage of the federal Constitution, and wrote an essay, that came out December 27, 1787. But Proudhon, having this sense of itemizing what's happening, I think has a good idea of what local economy is against. Local economy is about the soul of human life in commerce, where there's traffic, where there's movement, where there are people getting out of cars, going to building, where there are people suddenly congregating and then departing. But there is actually a human element of life that is traded among them in all those interactions. They're not just anonymous dots. They're not just dehumanized data. Proudhon said, to be governed is to be kept in sight, inspected, spied upon, directed, law-driven, numbered, enrolled, indoctrinated, preached at, controlled, estimated, valued, censured, commanded by creatures who have neither the right nor the wisdom nor the virtue to do so. To be governed, he says, is to be at every operation, at every transaction, noted, registered, enrolled, taxed, stamped, measured, numbered, assessed, licensed, authorized, admonished, forbidden, reformed, corrected, punished. It is under pretext of public utility. There you go. And in the name of the general interest, to be placed under contribution, trained, ransomed, exploited, monopolized, extorted, squeezed. You almost get, you're waiting to get to the end of the sentence. Squeezed, mystified, robbed. And then, now here's where you say local economy isn't going to take this forever. Then, at the slightest resistance, the first word of complaint, Is that you? Is that you, my listener here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio? Is there a sigh of complaint on your part? A complaint against the Republicans, a complaint against the Democrats? To be okay, but that don't get too excited, because Proudhon, like Brutus, is very, very bleak. There's the slightest resistance, and the first word of complaint, well, what happens? To be repressed, fined, despised, harassed, tracked, abused, clubbed, disarmed, choked, imprisoned, judged, condemned, shot, deported, sacrificed, sold, betrayed, and to crown all, this is the part that is the worst, to him, mocked, ridiculed, outraged, and dishonored. That is government. That is its justice. That is its morality. And of course, he's talking about absolutist government, whether under monarchy or under a president. All of them together share in the same premise, though I'd say probably if you had a monarchy, your government, your bureaucracy, your state is quite diminished. There's a story at Brutus. I'll tell you about Brutus in just a second. There's a story on TV3's website about negotiations being underway for FedEx, the corporate shipper, to add a facility near Enterprise South. The lease isn't yet in place, says Connie Avery, the FedEx media relations person. She said that she isn't able to answer Channel 3's questions about job opportunities or the size of the facility proposed for Chattanooga's Enterprise South. My name is David Toulis, and our show is Nuganomics.com. Do thank you for giving us a couple of minutes of your time. Here we are, the station that covers local economy and the free market, proposing an alternative to imperial economy, to imperial absolutist modern government, which has created for our day, for our pretended benefit, a gigantic economy, incorporating gigantic oblivion and gigantic failure. That's quoting Wendell Berry and his book, A Place in Time. Those are that's the title. In fact, the story in which those words come is called A Place in Time. Incorporating a gigantic oblivion and a gigantic failure. That is very much what we have now in the industrial age. Of course, the post-industrial age, with its cheap fuel, speed, and the fire-driven machinery of disintegration. Of course, he's referring there to the turning away of farming and farm families. The converting of that ancient realm, the agrarian realm, into a modern money-based economy, which destroyed the subsistence economy, the trading economy of the South and many other places around the U.S. as well. Well, Brutus just makes you laugh when you read. In the book I've got is Signet Classic, The Anti-Federalist Papers and the Constitutional Convention Debates, the clashes and compromises that gave birth to our form of government. It has a lot of sympathetic material, of course, to the federal system that we have now, which has, we have to admit, many advantages. But he says this power, he's talking about taxation, exercised without limitation, will introduce itself into every corner of the city and country. It will wait upon the ladies at their toilet and will not leave them in any of their domestic concerns. It will accompany them to the ball, the play, and the assembly. It will go with them when they visit and will on all occasions sit beside them in their carriage, nor will it desert them even at church. It will enter the house of every gentleman, watch over his cellar, wait upon his cook in the kitchen, follow the servants into the parlor, preside over the table, and note down all he eats or drinks. It will attend him to his bed and chamber and watch him as he sleeps. It will take cognizance of the professional man in his office or his study. It will watch the merchant in the counting house or in his store. It will follow the mechanic to his shop and in his work. It will haunt him in his family and in his bed. It will be a constant companion to the industrious farmer in all his labor. It will be with him in the house, in the field, observe the toil of his hands and the sweat of his brow. It will penetrate into the most obscure cottage. And finally, says Brutus in his essay that came out in December of 1787, opposing the federal Constitution. It will light upon the head of every person in the United States, and that's what's happened. And what's happened is that the national power, which originally had just the evil excise tax, right, and the evil stamp tax, and the evil tariff, it has alighted upon the heads of everyone by an audacious series of events, of amendments to the Constitution, reorganization of laws, and a subjugation, happily granted, right? A subjugation of the states by the most perfect, the most wondrous kinds of bribery to all these different classes of people, Brutus says, and in all these circumstances in which it will attend to them. That is to say, the absolutist surveillance modality. The language in which it will address them is, or will be, give. Give. That's the argument for national economy. Give, and it will certainly take from you. So our goal here at Nuganomics.com, as we exercise and try to live out the ideals of local economy, loving our neighbor and buying local, is to find the antidotes, to understand the problem as best we're able to, trying to improve the means of analysis, the means of conversation in your house. I do hope you can give us a few more minutes of your time. You, my listener, I do thank you. We think that the national narrative that Brutus attacks, that Prudhomme attacked, that even Carroll Quigley in his Tragedy and Hope, all implicitly condemn the theory that we are for which we have a prejudice, shall I say, is near is better than far, small is better than big, and simple than complex. And down in the footnotes, always make arguments by 3 points. And if you have other points, make sure that they read to be ancillary and supportive of the main ones. I would add these, among others: personal is better than corporate, and physical than abstract. Part of our argument here at Nuganomics.com is that you need to have a plan B, and that's a whole sequence of things. It's having a view, not that you're running away from something, but you are in receding your exposure and reducing your risk to the national disaster, which is brought about by bureaucratism and crony capitalism. You are not fleeing. You are taking advantage. You are broaching new areas for prosperity and for saving yourself. Right? Part of that is a negative action where you are avoiding a danger. But also, what we want you to have is the positive theory, and that is local economy, loving your neighbor and buying local. There are many aspects to it, and that is what I do here at Nuganomics.com. On the website, Nuganomics.com, of which I'm the mild-mannered editor. I'm a former newspaper copy editor for 24 years at the Chattanooga Times-Free Press when I finally graduated from that newsroom, and so I have ink stains formally on my hands. Part of our counter-revolution against the modern state, if you will, is taking place in the field of medicine. And one practitioner I want to bring your attention to is David Redd at QuickSurge. QuickSurge is a walk-in surgery clinic. David does not take insurance. Okay, you pay cash, and he treats your moles, your skin tags, your lacerations from the job, from home, and it's hassle-free, pain-free. You walk in, and because there's no insurance involved, you have a personal relationship with a doctor, and he is in charge of everything from A to Z. And there are no middlemen, no bean counters, no minders, no code books that he has to consult before deciding what to do in your care. Online, quicksurge.com. That's QUIKSURG, QUIKSURG.com. My name is David Toulis, and part of your prosperity in launching out with your own plan B would be to contact Eric Pelton. He's an accountant and a numbers guy, does taxes. His number is 622-3156. That's 622-3156. Are there alternatives to the searching gaze of the state, where all are supplicants, all are applicants? I was in a Department of Safety office this morning in Red Bank doing some business with the state, for which I took some flack. I took some flack for doing business with the state today. And I waited an hour and a half for attention, though I was the fourth one in line when that office opened up at 8:30. And there were 50 people finally in that office dealing mostly with driver's licenses. I sat next to a young woman who was going there for a gun permit, and she sat next to another young person, a gentleman who was reading a book. Of course, when anyone's reading a book, I always say, "What you reading?" And always a good way to start a conversation. And so she was there for a gun permit, but most people seem to be there for driver's licenses or learning permits. There's a homeschool mom behind me whom I recognized, and we chatted about homeschooling a little bit since I'm an editor in that field. And the thought I had was that in a place like that, everyone is completely open. It's as if one is before God. Before God, the sinner repents of his sins. God knows all things, and so the sinner has an obligation to reveal all, to confess all, and he can't hold back. Of course, that's the duty Christianity imposes upon every soul, that one repents to God of every sin, and that one should be very conscious of one's sins, and to better avoid committing them in the future, right? So in the Department of Safety, one has a similar sense that there's this great eye that knows all things, and one lies supine before it, waiting to be counted, to be stamped. This is David Toulis.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Right now, you can save half off at hotnewstalkradio.com. Go to hotnewstalkradio.com and click half off for exceptional deals on new and pre-owned unique quality items. For Hamilton County residents only. Save half off at Jet's Pizza, golf clubs, coffee, tea, a real sword, jewelry, and much more. It's half off. Go to half off at hotnewstalkradio.com right now, then click on half off to save big. Be sure to join us live Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays at 11 a.m. as we bring you lots of fantastic deals right here, AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. hotnewstalkradio.com and half off. Surf our site and ride the wave of savings. We've got a table here at Delia's in Soddy Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection, loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas, every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Soddy Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Soddy, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's got third. He's going for second. Earnhardt going for the lead.
The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series is on the Motor Racing Network. Coverage continues Sunday here at Live on the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Check it out live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Hot News Talk 1240.
When my brother and I opened the first Jet's Pizza, we believed if we made the best pizza, customers would find us. So we made fresh dough each day, used fresh toppings, and premium mozzarella cheese. 300 plus stores later, we still do.
Try Jet's famous 8-corner pizza with premium mozzarella cheese and one topping, now just $11.99 for a limited time only. Jet's Pizza, the best pizza in town. 3600 Hickson Pike.
Life is short. Eat better pizza.
Jets, get Jets.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducts. Call now.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
If the South would have won, we'd have had it made. I'd probably run for president of the Southern states. The day Elvis passed away would be our national holiday. If the South would have won, we'd have had it made.
NASCAR, Laura Ingraham, Dennis Miller. David Toulis, Coast to Coast AM and CBS Radio News. Chattanooga's news, talk, and sports leader.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. Growing calls for accountability after a massive data breach involving the government's personnel office. And now the director of the Office of Personnel Management has resigned. Catherine Archuleta has until now resisted calls to step down earlier, saying steps are being taken.
Analyze what data may have been stolen, and identify those individuals who may be affected.
The great majority are people who applied for background checks and provided social security numbers and fingerprints.
Fox Radio's Rachel Sutherland. Beth Corbett of the White House Budget Office is said to assume the role of acting director of OPM. One of the youngest children ever charged with murder in Ohio will not stand trial for now. She was 11 when police accused her of the beating death of an infant her mother was babysitting. Judge deciding she's just not competent after testimony from experts. Fox News, we report, you decide.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Toulis.
The company Persistent Surveillance Systems, run by a man named Ross McNutt, proposes to have a plane flying miles above a city, circling, and taking very high-quality digital images and storing them, finally when the plane lands, storing them for a month or so. And if any time a file needs to be opened, it can be. And if there's something that someone wants to investigate, let's say two men meeting in a field and one of them with a shovel, one digging a hole, the camera, the data can be run backwards, and one can find out where that car came from, what house the man who drove it, which house he left that morning, where he stopped for breakfast, with whom he spoke at another stop, where the shovel came from, maybe even when it was put in the car, if the car was not in the garage, and that house is in the scope of service of that persistent surveillance system area. Well, one can find when the shovel got put in the back trunk. And the service rises from warfare, it arises from a military interest, and is being proposed for American cities. And it was defeated in Dayton, Ohio, even though it was argued that it would save $3,400 per person per year in serious crimes. That was the estimate, the dollar figure thrown at the public as the backer and the backers on the city council offered and proposed this total surveillance system, which has of course many possible uses by commercial government. There's often a war interest, then it becomes a surveillance interest, and then there comes commercial government trying to monetize an asset. And it could be monetized by university sociology departments who are studying certain trends, maybe in traffic or other, and or marketing. What kind of roads have the most traffic at when, and that data is available by other means, of course, than this high-flying camera system 5 or 6 miles up. But no doubt there is a commercial government interest. Government should be, we have to remember, involving itself in a very limited task, and that is the oppression of evil. Government, in the progressive theme or scheme of things, government is not about using law to stop bad and to punish bad, but using laws, meaning coercion, right, compulsion, to accomplish good. So good arises out of destruction. Good arises out of coercion, of pinching, crunching, and squeezing people or businesses or families or towns. We accomplish good things by forcing people to do them. Very much the theory of Mohammedans, by the way. Mohammedan theology is all about that. And there's an interesting parallel, and we can see it more clearly now with lug butt theory seeming to have its way more and more with the great excitement following the Obergefell anti-marriage opinion out of Washington. There is in this surveillance scheme a kind of a top-down view of local economy. Of course, I don't think there's any economic interest in that sense. It's more surveillance. But what about us? Do we have a top-down view of local economy? Do we view our economic lives, our commerce, our buying and selling in that kind of abstract and impersonal way, or do we have more of my idea? My idea is that we think in terms of people, and that we think in terms of supporting local economy by policy, right? By decision, a deliberate idea, where we shop local, we shop with regular people who are local, and we try as well as we can to not support national economy. And of course, the great area in which I think we can start in that, and I have some suggestions I want to make, is paying cash. We had Jordan Miller on the show recently, and Jordan, who runs Dub's Place restaurant in Red Bank, is facing a barrage of competition from national chains all up and down Dayton Boulevard. And he says the main thing we need to remember is that you pay cash with a local provider. You pay cash. That is to say, what's cash? Well, okay, checks are effectively cash, and green rectangles, the circulating currency, the bank script that we playfully call money, but which is really not money at all. Money is a reference to something of value that's passed about as a medium of exchange. And of course, that would be gold or silver. We don't have that. We have banknotes that pretend to represent value and offer they're kind of a temporizing scheme that have a momentary value. That's the buying power of which changes virtually every day, usually against the person holding the note. Buy locally and pay cash. That's a big step, I think, that people can make if they really care about national economy, about local economy as against national economy. If you, my listener, have a stake in the battle flag of the South being lowered in Charleston, if you have a stake in that, but there's nothing you can say about it, there's nothing you can do about it, you don't want to post a letter to John Wilson at Chattanoogan.com, you're kind of hesitant to fly the flag around. Well, there are things you can do that are oblique. Oblique means of warfare in this great scheme. Not say that my oversimplified scheme of understanding the world is that we have a national economy and local economy. We have centralized economy out of Washington, the warfare welfare state, and compulsion, and then we have local economy, which is all voluntary in nature, and which is really personal. And how do we counteract? Can we counteract the surveillance theory directly? Well, the answer is no. If it happens in your city, if you're from a faraway place and your town, as Dayton, Ohio did, considers such a scheme, you may not be able to stop it. But there are things you can do nonetheless, despite this persistent violation. With every click of the lens, there is a violation of your rights by the overweening progressive surveillance system. And my desire here at Nuganomics.com, since I'm the editor, and you might say the chief bottle washer and scribe, is to give a sense that we can fight some of these fights obliquely by the theory of obliquity. In other words, get what you want by going around it, right? Going sort of outflanking it, coming at it, attaining what you want by fighting in other areas, but consciously putting all the parts together. So you may not have anything to say. You may not want to post anything on Facebook about the Confederate flag. But what can you do for local economy? You see, you can say, I'm going to take a step today. I'm going to withdraw $500 from my bank account today, just for the heck of it, and in 50s. Okay, that's what I would recommend you do. Hundreds are too big. 50s are just about right, given the loss of value of that note. Carry that around. Carry $10, $50 bills with you, and pay cash. Now that step right there is going to have a lot to do with boosting local economy. And as you do that, what you're doing is you're weaning yourself day by day, transaction by transaction, from the whole idea of being saved by Washington, being saved from the indignities of the battle flag, to being saved from the hatred of that symbol, being saved from the South. After all, national economy, national government and its theory propose to win us over, right? To make us less savage and less primitive and more progressive. Von Mises was writing in, I'm trying to remember when it was he wrote this, but he said that the champions of socialism call themselves progressives, right? But what do? Well, they recommend a system characterized by rigid observance of routine and by a resistance to every kind of improvement. They call themselves liberals, but they are intent upon abolishing liberty. And, that's what I am. I'm a classical liberal. And I like to use that word because it throws people. People who don't think much about these issues say, wow, you're a liberal. Well, I'm a classical liberal. And of course, they think that means I'm a liberal of the best kind. They think I'm the best kind of Democrat you would want. But a classical liberal is someone who favors the free market, which means he's not a Republican either, right? He's not a Republican because he is a classical free market, pro-free enterprise liberal. And you can be that too. You, my listener, I think you're working in that direction. I know you don't agree with me on everything, and that's quite all right. But von Mises, in his great book from 1941, which I've read a couple times, goes on to say that they call themselves Democrats, but they yearn for dictatorship. They call themselves revolutionaries, but they want to make the government omnipotent. They promise the blessings of the Garden of Eden, but they plan to transform the world into a gigantic post office, every man but one a subordinate clerk in a bureau. That's national economy in the end. And think of even corporations. The bigger the corporation, the more it becomes a bureaucracy. There is a scale problem with the country, and there's a scale problem with corporations. They don't know when to quit consolidating. They don't know when to quit the M&A, the mergers and acquisitions, the leverage buyouts that are boons to the strip mining capitalists who are involved in those transactions. And what we want here in Chattanooga and Hamilton County is your prosperity. And so I'm here trying to prosper. Also, I'm a small businessman, and you need to think in the direction I am. I would like to suggest. I'm not saying, of course, that you have to, but I offer my arguments, and my guests sometimes help me make the argument that we are to have not a centralizing scheme in mind, but a decentralizing scheme in mind. One that we can see in the headlines, the great data breach of 25 million people who are either in the federal government seeking clearance or who are not in government, but who sought at some point in the past 15 years a clearance for approval. You can find out what we've got in our files if you get this clearance. These people have all been compromised by some person whom the national power has as an enemy. Nation states and national governments are incapable of dealing with the future. Okay, they are on their way out. They are in a period of senescence, and often when the tiger with his paw in the trap is near death, often at that point he's the most violent. And I think that we are going to see some of that in the next 10 years as we reach the 250th year of the empire, at which time it is set to expire, according to Sir John Glubb and his wonderful analyses of the duration of empires. None, he says, last more than 250 years. It's an almost universal expiry date of an empire, 250 years. Even Rome, and by his, I think if I'm remembering right, even by his analysis, even the Byzantine Empire, which is said to have lasted the longest of 1,000 years, but there was a long decline and finally a breakup. And we face the same thing. We shouldn't view these things, as Pat Buchanan does, as a dire situation. Pat Buchanan, who has many right things to say, is afraid of the breakup of the country. He is a nationalist, and that is, you could praise him for it, or you could say that is his fault. There's a story by Barry Donegan kind of bringing us up to date on the whole idea of cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies are of interest to me because they're a sign of how the state is losing its control of money, of the issuance of credit, and of the medium of exchange. Of course, in our country, it's this paper dollar. There's a printed version and a digital version. But Citibank, which is one of those companies that could not exist in a free market, it is an entity that is by definition insolvent, as every other fractional reserve lender is insolvent. And so it is kept afloat, is kept aloft by government guarantees, and lately by the zero interest rate policy, which makes debt capitalism extremely profitable for those involved in what's called the carry trade, the people who are trading on the gyrating values by the hour of the world's fiat currency systems. Ken Moore is the chief of Citibank's tech development subsidiary, Citi Innovation Labs, and he said, we have up and running 3 separate systems within Citi now that actually deploy blockchain distributed ledger technologies. And that's a mouthful, but what this report, this quote from Ken Moore is saying is that this giant bank is trying to deal with systems. It's playing with the dynamite that will be the demolition, if you will, of central banking and eventually state chartered fractional reserve banking. That is to say, banking as we know it today. They're all within the labs, he says, just now, so there is no real money passing through these systems, yet they are at a pre-production level, to be clear. We also have an equivalent to Bitcoin up and running, again, within the labs, so we can mine what we call a Citicoin, for want of a better term. So Citicoin is thinking of issuing its own digital currency based on the Bitcoin model. You might say, well, how free market is that? Well, the idea is very free market because currencies by code, right? There's a story in the Money Changer this month about the merger of 2 digital gold coin entities operating out of Canada. One of them is run by an American, James Turk, a very important man in the world of gold and silver and the warfare, if you will, between lawful money and inflated money. TechCrunch points out the fact that Bitcoin Magazine cited a presentation last year by Citigroup wherein company representatives said that due to the potential benefits, we believe the adoption of digital money is inevitable. While we believe that the use of digital money is certain, the future of specific cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin is less clear. We've heard from Bob Biles here in Chattanooga, the Bitcoin meetup fellow, that it is uncertain, but it is like the first Lloyd Brothers plane. That was uncertain, but look, once you get it started, the innovations come rapidly after those first flights. My name is David Toulis, and our show is Nuganomics.com. If you want a great dinner or a great lunch, go to Delia's Authentic Mexican Restaurant in South Saudi Daisy. She serves a mean plate of tacos. The special today is the taco salad. It's number 19 on her illustrated menu, $6.25. That's $1 off. $1 off. And if you mention the radio station to the waiter or the waitress, you'll get a free iced tea. Make sure you ask for it, because just make sure you claim your rights. Delia's has the freshest ingredients. Everything is cooked to perfection by Maria Hernandez and her staff there on Dayton Pike, just near the Thrasher Life. We're members of Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Just want you to know. And where we trade in Trade Bank dollars, it's by debit card. And since it's a trading economy, there's a little bit of a fee at the end of a transaction. There's a monthly statement that goes out, and it's done. The accounting is done that way. And so the middleman, which is Trade Bank of USA, gets a little bit of the swag. The number to find out more about this terrific system of local economy and in the barter economy is 877-2202, 877-2202. Ask to speak to Jürgen Mutz, the German with the southern twang. There's a great deal of gloom among defenders of the South and defenders of you might say the Christian perspective here in the South, as the battle flag is lowered over the that quadrant there in Charleston outside the Capitol building, and the reason is that we are under assault. I guess we'd say the whole idea of the South, the idea of independent states determining their own course, is under siege, and the lowering of the battle flag is another sign of victory, a sign of victory of among politicians who are effectively taking the northern view the national economy perspective. Confederate General Patrick Cleburne said in 1864, just before the South lost the war, he said, if the South loses, he says, it means that the history of this heroic struggle will be written by the enemy, that our youth will be trained by Northern school teachers, will learn from Northern school books, their version of the war, will be impressed by all of the influences of history and education, to regard our gallant dead as traitors and our maimed veterans as fit subjects for derisions. Back then, people who defended the South, who would not take the oath, were racists, extremists, radicals, hate mongers, traitors. Now, the people who hold that view, you might say the local economy view, Christians, patriots, war veterans, constitutionalists, they're called by the same names as the unreconstructed Southerners. Well, my thinking is that we need to have what effectively is Christian reconstruction, Christian rebuilding, and it really happens on top. There has to be demolition of the old structures, and the old structures, part of them are in Christendom itself, and these are a kind of subjectivized Christianity, a kind of Christianity that says that God cares really about nothing except what's in your soul and between your ears, a Christianity that doesn't have any vigorous presence in the fields of banking or the fields of law or industry or commerce or mathematics or sociology or any of those fields. Christianity really doesn't have anything to care about those, because Christ is coming back and we can't worry about polishing the brass on a sinking ship. That's the premillennial dispensationalist idea, if you will, the admonition that the pessimists in Christianity are throwing at people like me, the optimists. And we are the victors tell the story of the winning. But Lincoln was not a man who was for black people. I hope you've heard that. If you haven't heard that, there's a rich literature from various writers that point out that he was really a racial supremacist. I don't know that you would call him a racist per se, but he said, I'm not nor have ever been in favor of bringing about in any way the social and political equality of the white and black races. I'm not, nor ever have been in favor of making voters or jurors of Negroes, nor of qualifying them to hold office, nor to intermarry with white people. Inasmuch as they cannot so live while they do remain together, there must be the position of superior and inferior. And as much as any other man, I'm in favor of having the superior position assigned to the white. Well, Lincoln was not fighting a war not to save the slaves. He didn't fight the war for that. He fought it for the tariff. He fought it for the Union. He believed that the states somehow came after the Union. The Union was first, the federal government was first, and that the states were really just sort of afterthoughts. Of course, this is a bit of historical revisionism. We have also historical revisionism in a big way in the Obergefell ruling opinion that overturns marriage. It is a revision of the nature of the state's relations with the federal power, and here we have a federal department saying that states do not have any stand against our claim of the world, our vision of the world, our absolute theory, in this case, Lugbut or pro-gay theory, which has to stand as a constitutional right, not just the gay right of marriage is not just something that is granted by a state, but the state has to recognize it. That is a kind of a military claim against each of the 50 states, or at least those remaining who did not support gay theory in marriage. We have forgotten the structure of our country, and so there has to be there has to be some kind of demolition work, and that demolition work, I would like to think, can be done peaceably by separation, by decentralization, by the breaking off of structures, political structures. If we have to, there probably will be political, in which people go their own way. It's happening all around the world, in Sardinia, in Cyprus, in all parts of the world. There are people who are having it together. They're saying, we are like each other. Let us Kurds unite, even though right now Kurdistan is in 3 or 4 countries. Kurdistan is its own body, and eventually the artificial structures, which are nation states, will give way, and Kurdistan will again be its own tribal entity. covering what now are 3 distinct political artifacts, including Iraq and Turkey. Well, this is David Toulis. Our show is Nuganomics.com. We're going to try to find out a little bit more about Obergefell, and we're going to talk with a very liberal Democrat, a politically active attorney here in Chattanooga, former party of the Democratic Party of Hamilton County. This is David Toulis. Our show is Nuganomics.com. Stuart James is going to be with us.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Arnie Guest Goldsmith, Chattanooga's gold standard in quality, selection, and beautifully handcrafted jewelry. Arnie Guest Goldsmith has 7 jewelers on site and ready to assist you in the design of your one-of-a-kind diamond piece. Arnie Guest Goldsmith, Chattanooga's gold standard in quality, selection, and beautifully handcrafted jewelry. Arnie Guest Goldsmith has 7 jewelers on site and ready to assist you in the design of your one-of-a-kind diamond piece to the perfect affordable handcrafted gem. From just $20 silver earrings to your dream elegant work of art to adorn your finger, neck, and wrist, impressing your friends and family, Arnie Guest Goldsmith will ensure that your budget is met. Planning the perfect wedding or a special event? Then let Arnie Guest Goldsmith assist you in choosing or designing the keepsake that will last you a lifetime. All of Arnie Guest Goldsmith repairs and crafting are done in-house, so you can be rest assured that it will meet or exceed your expectations. For over 30 years, Arnie Guest Goldsmith has served Chattanooga with the finest jewelry and services, meaning only the highest quality and standards. So the next time you think of jewelry, custom design, remounting, appraisals, or repairs, remember Arnie Guest Goldsmith. And please visit Arnie Guest Goldsmith at 5090 Adams Road, Hickson. That's 5090 Adams Road, Hickson. Call 875-2390. That's 875-2390. Or go to jewelryfromscratch.com. That's all one word, jewelryfromscratch.com. Jewelryfromscratch.com. Arnie Guest Goldsmith of Chattanooga.
Surgery does not have to be financially painful. Hi, I'm Surgical Dr. David Red, and I'd like to invite you to my walk-in surgery clinic in North Shore. Quick Surge brings you immediate relief from moles, skin tags, maybe a laceration. Quick Surge. You walk in, fill out a mini form, I numb the area I'll treat, and before you know it, you're on your way home. Do I take insurance? No, because I take cash customers. I have super low and fixed prices, credit card, check, or cash. Uninsured? Member of the working financially disadvantaged? Choose Quick Surge. I publish prices online. No murk, just sunshine. Hassle-free, pain-free. Love the idea of a personal relationship with a doctor? Drop in with nasty cut from work. Quick Surge. I'll take care of you. Quick Surge in the Public Center on the North Shore. No insurance hassles with Quick Surge. The national medical system is dysfunctional, overpriced, very alienating. I'm part of the solution, and so are you. Come on home. QuickSurge.com. QUIKSURG. Relief.
By the time the police get there, it may be too late. Arm yourself today. Protect you and your loved ones with a pistol, shotgun, or rifle. At Sportsman Supply and Services in Hickson, they offer a huge selection of firearms, ammo, and accessories. In business for over 26 years, Sportsman Supply and Services features an indoor shooting range, carry permit, and handgun safety courses. You know, in Tennessee, you can carry a handgun in your vehicle with no permit. Go to Sportsman Supply and Services today. Sportsman Supply and Services in Hickson, where owner Carl, who's a former owner of Montlake Shooting Center, will guide you in deciding on the perfect gun. Looking for ammo, high-capacity magazines, hunting rifles, and accessories? Sportsman Supply and Services in Hickson has it. If you want to save money and ammo, then add laser training as part of your shooting experience. Sportsman Supply and Services in Hickson. Their mission is to provide customers with the best firearms equipment, instruction, service, and indoor shooting experience. Sportsman Supply and Services, 4824 Hickson Pike, next to the Holiday Inn Express. Call 875-4868. That's 875-4868.
Here you are, working to keep your customers happy and to manage your cash flow. IRS problems are the last thing you need, but here they are, flapping about you like vultures. Get help from Eric Pelton and his team of accountants at E.J. Pelton Company. Audits, letters, proposed return changes, 1099s, penalty threats. Pelton Tax Resolution Services brings peace of mind and helps you keep more of what you've earned. EJPelton.com. Offices on Brainerd Road and in Soddy Daisy, just north of the Bilo. That's E.J. Pelton. Call 622-3156. Think ahead, 622-3156.
All systems go.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
WSDT Sunny Daisy, Chattanooga.
CBS News, I'm Deborah Rodriguez. A changing of the guard at the Office of Personnel Management, a day after we found out about hackers accessing the personal information of more than 21 million people. CBS News correspondent Pam Coulter is live at the White House with details.
And Deborah, less than 24 hours after telling reporters she had no intention of leaving, OMB head Catherine Archuleta turned in her resignation. White House spokesman Josh Earnest said she did it of her own volition, but the president believes
new leadership with a set of skills and experiences that are unique to the urgent challenges that OPM faces are badly needed.
Beth Colbert, who currently works in the budget office, will take over at OPM until a permanent replacement can be found. Deborah?
There was a red, white, and blue studded ticker tape parade up New York City's Canyon of Heroines for the world champion U.S. women's soccer team. They got prizes from Mayor Bill de Blasio.
It is now my pleasure to present to each member of the team a very rare honor, the key to the city of New York.
3,500 people came out to shower the U.S. women, many of them young girls and parents. In Columbia, South Carolina, it was goodbye to the Confederate flag, symbol of the Old South.
It is a very special moment.
But not everyone was happy to see it go.
It's using its political grandstanding on the deaths of 9 people. 9 people who didn't need to die because of a boy's idiocy and whatever disease he had.
The head of the FBI says that boy, the Charleston church shooter, should not have been able to buy the gun he used in the massacre in the first place.
Dylan Roof bought his .45 caliber pistol in April. He passed a background check, but FBI Director James Comey tells reporters he shouldn't have. Federal law prohibits firearm sales to any unlawful user of a controlled substance. Roof was arrested in March for possession of Suboxone, a drug used to treat opiate addiction. According to the police report, Roof admitted using that drug, but the disqualifying detail never made it into the FBI database. Director Comey says he's sick over it.
CBS News correspondent Stephen Portnoy. After 2 weeks of testimony, the defense has rested in the case of the Colorado theater gunman. James Holmes' lawyers argued their client was insane when he killed 12 people and injured 70 others. But doctors who testified for the government said Holmes knew the difference between right and wrong. U.S. stocks posting solid gains as European Union officials go over plans for a Greek bailout. On Wall Street, the Dow is up 191 points, S&P ahead 23. And it'll be number 1 Novak Djokovic versus number 2 Roger Federer in the men's final at Wimbledon Sunday. Each won their semifinal matches today in straight sets. This is CBS News.
Are you paying too much for term life insurance? There's a tremendous price war among the major term life companies. Rates have dropped dramatically in the past few years. For example, a man age 45 non-tobacco user, $1 million of coverage, $75 per month level rate for the next 10 years. Or a man age 50 non-tobacco can obtain $500,000 of coverage for a monthly premium of only $110 per month, guaranteed not to change for the next 20 years. That's right, level rate guaranteed not to change for the next 20 years. If you're a smoker, we have great rates available for you as well. At Term Busters, we specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. If you're looking for new or replacement term life insurance, call today for a quote at 1-800-569-5440. That's 1-800-569-5440. You're probably paying more than you should. Call Term Busters, 1-800-569-5440, or visit our website at termbusters.net. Remember, 1-800-569-5440. Rates and availability may vary by state. Sample rate quotes based on preferred non-tobacco underwriting. Exam required to qualify.
Another chapter in what's being called Donut Gate.
An apology from Grammy-nominated entertainer Ariana Grande. The 22-year-old Grande was caught on video licking donuts on a tray at a Southern California bake shop. She hadn't bought any of them, and it seemed to be some kind of statement about obesity. Now she says,
seeing a video of yourself behaving poorly that you have no idea was taken
is such a rude awakening.
Police and health officials are investigating. Grande is also backed out of a weekend concert tied to the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. Steve Kathan, CBS News.
Now we know why there's a train on the cover. Wall Street Journal's published the first chapter of Harper Lee's much-anticipated Ghost at a Watchman. The prequel to her Pulitzer Prize-winning To Kill a Mockingbird tells the story of a grown-up scout taking a train from New York City back home to Atlanta to visit her father. The book goes on sale Tuesday. Deborah Rodriguez, CBS News.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Toulis.
Stuart James is an attorney here in Chattanooga with his office down in the James Building. He handles truck accidents and discrimination cases when he can get them, sexual race-connected discrimination cases. He's waiting to get an LGBTQ case, maybe. He is the former chairman of the Democratic Party of Hamilton County.
That's right.
And is a political consultant and liberal-leaning activist, I would suggest. He writes on his own website. It's a blog. It's blogg.org. And his time is given about 70% of it to legal questions, making his living at the bar, and the 10% is in consulting candidates of like mind around the state and maybe beyond the state. Stuart, welcome to Nooganomics.com.
It's great to be here. I'm glad that you invited me to come, David.
Well, tell us about the Obergefell opinion out of Washington. Tell my listener what it means for him.
Or what it means for them, I should say. Look, everybody has their own interpretation of the opinion. I read the opinion, and all it does is it says that there is a constitutional bar to prohibiting same-sex couples from getting married. It does not talk about religious freedom. It does not talk about churches losing their 501c3 status. But the way the opinion is written, and it's not really that much of a legal opinion, it's very flowery because of Justice Kennedy. It's very flowery because of the way he writes. And it's hard to interpret how far the opinion goes in terms of marriage itself. But there's a small opening and a small door in that opinion that may give not only LGBTQ individuals rights to not be discriminated against, but it may be talking about expanding anti-discrimination laws anyway to make sure that they're all encompassing. And that's the big issue for me that I'm looking at. We'll have to see where the Supreme Court goes on that issue.
So you would like there to be what is effectively now an equal rights amendment that was proposed in the 1970s. That did not pass. It did not. But we have effectively an amendment to the Constitution practically by the high court that goes almost as far as that amendment would have gone.
Now as a lawyer, I wouldn't say amendment to the Constitution. I'm going to play lawyer on you for a minute. I would talk about interpreting the Constitution as to what our equal rights are. I've always taken a broad view of equal rights under the Constitution. I think the Constitution in and of itself should be very broadly interpreted. I think that people who are gay, people who are black, yes, people who are white, people who are minority, Mexican, I think the equal protection of the law should apply to everybody, and it should apply to everybody equally.
Is it fair to say that Obergefell demolishes marriage?
No, that is an unfair statement. It does not demolish marriage. I have been watching, and I'm going to talk in terms of politics because that's what I do. The conservative right. I've been watching the conservative right, and I'm not talking conservatives. I'm making a distinction here. I've been watching the conservative right talk about how this undermines marriage. And it undermines the religious institution of marriage. If you look at the history of marriage, and you look at where marriage came from, it was neither religious, and it was neither between a man and a woman. History is replete with same-sex couple marriages.
Human history?
Human history. And factual history. Native Americans, for example. The highest form of spirituality, if you were so chosen, was same-sex unions. And there is a religious component, and I respect that religious component. I don't know if you're a Baptist, Catholic, or Episcopalian, but I'm Episcopalian. And Episcopalians sometimes believe different than Catholics do. Catholics do not condone same-sex marriage. And I support that right for a religious institution to do that. Whereas in the Episcopal Church, there is a segment of the church that supports same-sex marriage. To me, that's religious freedom, and I think churches should be free to make that choice.
Well, if marriage is not exclusively between a man and a woman, as state constitutions have declared and common law declares, is not marriage now deconstructed, in which you can have man-boy marriage, you can have polyamory unions, you can have polygamy, you can have all kinds of novelties for which there is no bar, there's no barrier to them, as the plaintiffs admitted in the court hearings.
And they did admit that, and that those are issues, and those are human issues, I would say. But first, I want to say that I don't think that common law, and I don't think that human law or human nature in law, looking at the history of marriage and looking at the history of human beings, which I did after this opinion came back, necessarily means that marriage is between a man and a woman. I think we have defined that in certain segments of our society, and what the Supreme Court opinion does is it expands that definition.
So Obergefell does not deconstruct marriage, does not demolish marriage. Does it give? Hang on, we have a call. Caller, do you have a question?
Sure, I want to address your attorney friend. Fortunately, we're not in China, we're not in Europe. Every state but Louisiana is a common law state. So you can't use it as an argument. Well, you can because you're an attorney. But one should not use it as an argument. History is replete with instances of human sacrifice and males marrying dogs. Come on. What common law is, if you're an attorney, marriage is a woman taking on a man's last name. They hold themselves up to communities being man and wife. They have to have sex to be married because the purpose of it is procreation. But you know what the great thing about this decision is? We conservatives now are going to do what liberals and the EPA have done for years. We're going to ignore the Supreme Court and their opinions. They're not laws, they're opinions. We have smoked the left out. This is the beginning of the new Second American Revolution. And it's going to make the first one look like Play Day. Thanks.
All right. That's a political statement.
That is a political statement.
Go ahead and talk about, we're talking with Stuart James. Stuart, tell about whether or not this decision deconstructs other things than just marriage. Is there a way now that we can say that we have been unhinged from national power, that we have been freed from our past obligations to obey it?
That is certainly the argument for the conservative right. What the conservative right has done is they've done this very cleverly, and this is the political side of this. They have said that what we're going to do is we are going to ignore the Supreme Court, that this is an opinion, that it is not the law. Constitutionally speaking, the Supreme Court is a lawmaking body. They do make law. There are three branches of government. It's very basic. The executive, and I know you may disagree with me, the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. No matter how you interpret it, this is the law of the land. It is law, and is what they've done, and you have to follow that law.
Now, is it law to lawyers only, or to everybody?
To everybody.
How can that be? Because the judiciary is a body that gives opinions about law.
No,
it doesn't make law.
The judiciary. See, that's what people think. But, if an order comes down from the United States Supreme Court and it tells me to do something as a lawyer, or tells you to do something as a party to that case, and you don't follow it, there are going to be consequences.
If I'm not a party to that case,
you're going to follow it too, because there are going to be consequences. Now, there is a protection here. The legislature has the right to amend an opinion. So let's say you don't like what the Supreme Court says about gay marriage. There are other avenues that you can legislate away what the opinion has said. And that's happened, in the state of Tennessee before. That's happened. Well, for example, motion for summary judgment stuff, when you get a case dismissed. The Supreme Court had made a ruling that made it almost impossible to get a case dismissed. And then the legislature passed a statute saying, no, we don't agree with the Supreme Court. This is what you have to do. And that's a prime example here on the home front. And I don't want to get too technical because it's really not exciting stuff. But you can have legislative action that can modify things. For example, in the Supreme Court decision, the legislature in Tennessee is now going to pass the Religious Freedom Protection Act, because they feel what the Supreme Court decision does is it invades on freedom of religion, and that churches may lose certain rights because they might be required to marry gay couples when their religious dogma says no.
If a bill like that passes, it's dealing just with the consequences of Obergefell. It's not the state House and Senate are not going after the central issue, which is what is marriage. Will they?
I think that if you look,
can they?
I don't think they can go after what is marriage, but I think they can collaterally attack it. The reason I use that example, because this is a state opinion, there are ways around the opinion and the impact of the opinion that the legislature can try to take. Whether this Marriage Protection Act or Religious Protection Act passes or not is another thing. Now, can we define by constitutional amendment marriage? Is that stopped? You amend the Constitution, the opinion's gone. And I don't think the Constitution of the United States is going to get amended. I don't think the votes are there.
Stuart James, attorney and Democratic activist, did Bill Knowles, the county clerk, violate his oath of office when he threw up his hands on that Friday morning when the decision came down and said, well, I'm going to start recording gay unions as marriage. I'm doing that in good faith. Did he violate his oath?
No. He did not.
Well, how not?
Because he is complying with an opinion of the highest court in the land that requires states to act accordingly.
So a man can be absolved of his oath before God.
I don't think he's absolved of his oath before God. That's your interpretation of what before God means. And look, if you think that religion bans gay marriage, I'm going to respect that opinion, because I believe that religion does not, and the Bible does not ban gay marriage, and I'm a full supporter of gay marriage. And it's not going to undermine our morality. It's not going to undermine our faith. It's not going to undermine what we believe in Jesus or what we believe in God. We are a great melting pot. And you know what? You are entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to mine.
I'm asking here. I'm not asking a religious question, Stuart James. I'm asking a question about the law. Here, a man takes an oath before God in public to uphold this Constitution until it changes, or until he is removed from office. Is he absolved legally, morally? Let me ask about that. Is he absolved legally and before God of his oath that he doesn't have to obey his oath anymore on account of this opinion? Your view is yes. Right?
No, because that's your interpretation. That is he absolved of his duty before God. That is a religious interpretation based upon.
Well, there are two parts to the question.
I'm going to answer the before God first. That is a religious interpretation of the question that is based on faith and that has no basis in law. Legally, he is absolved because the Supreme Court of the United States has said you have got to grant marriage licenses to.
But he was not a party to the suit.
No,
himself.
he's still. It doesn't make a difference. The Supreme Court. It is the law of the land. That's what it is. You're going to have to suffer the consequences of the law of the land. We have to respect the institution of the Supreme Court and what it is. We have to respect the three branches of government. And if conservatives want to do civil disobedience, one day somebody's going to pay the consequences of it. That's fine, because civil disobedience is a part of American society and has been for a long time. And that's a freedom of speech argument. I'm not going to go there.
Well, that's in fact that's what Pat Buchanan is proposing in a post in the last day or two: the coming era of civil disobedience. Well, okay, so we're talking with Stuart James, attorney. This is David Toulis. Thanks for joining us here at Nuganomics.com at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. And the question I had is this: but are there not, though, for example, just to linger just for a moment on this very warm question about the oath of office and Bill Knowles, our county clerk, very popular clerk. He's in the sixth or seventh term in office. How is it that he doesn't perjure himself? How is he not vulnerable to the perjury statute? Because he is recording as a fact something that he, in his heart of hearts, knows is not true. Perjury is always the declaration in a factual matter of something as fact that you know is not a fact. Is he at all vulnerable to someone demanding a prosecution against him for perjury?
For what?
For declaring two men, declaring Jim and Joe to be married, and asking his downstream clerks to affirm the same.
See,
that's suborning perjury.
He is no, it's not, because perjury is making a statement under oath when you're testifying. He's
or
not
doing it
perjury
on a government document.
No, he's not doing it on a government document. Number one, he has got a Supreme Court opinion and he has to comply with as a government official. He has to comply with it. Number two, he is not saying, I agree with gay marriage. What he is doing is issuing a marriage license under the law.
Well,
that is a legal document that enables you to get married. I think all of these arguments that you're making are peripheral. What they're designed to do is to get everybody's attention off the main point. And none of them, the main point is that gay marriage is legal in the United States now. Gay couples can get married, period. Bottom line, there's no exception.
Well, we're trying to, my thinking is that it doesn't really matter what his personal views are. It really doesn't, whether he's for gay marriage or against it. The question is his oath of office and the duty under the Constitution as written. When that opinion came down Friday morning, Stuart James, those words didn't change. They were still there, and they still were in English. They still said something to him.
What words in the Constitution give him a duty not to issue gay marriage licenses? There's nothing in the Constitution.
The marriage amendment.
The marriage amendment has now been declared ineffective. It is unconstitutional under the United States Constitution, and it is no longer the law of the state of Tennessee pursuant to the Supreme Court of the United States. And that's the way government works. And that's the way it works. And there are many constitutional provisions that have been declared unconstitutional and became ineffective.
And every lawyer will say the same thing, Stuart James. You are a faithful member of the bar.
Every lawyer will not say
the legal guild.
thing.
Well,
Yeah,
they will.
not.
They will all say what you effectively are saying, that there's no option. All you can do is capitulate, throw your hands up.
Yeah, I don't think that it's capitulation. I don't think you're throwing your hands up. What I think it is respect for the system that we have. And I think those who suggest differently, either one, have not studied American history and don't understand the way the government of the United States works, or two, is doing it for a political motivation, with the exception of David, who is obviously, I don't know what your real beliefs are, but you're giving me a good challenge today.
Well,
and I do like it. I mean, I do like it, but look, there is no alternative. This has happened. And you know what I don't understand is why everybody's so afraid of it. And that's what I don't understand, because people are afraid of it, including Pat Buchanan and Ted Cruz and many people on the right.
Well, that's right. And probably as I think, I think they'll be more afraid of it as they see the results downstream, Stuart James, of attorney Stuart James is a practitioner of law and formerly the Democratic Hamilton County Democratic Party chairman. People are afraid of it because they see what the excitement of the Obergefell victory is bringing in gay ranks. The lug butts want to make it so that there can't be the exercise of First Amendment rights of religion. What they object to is the exercise. People can have their religious beliefs, but just don't exercise them, because if you do, we are going to find a cause of action against you.
I don't think so. I don't think exercising, there is nothing about the decision that says you cannot exercise your religious beliefs. There is nothing about it. For example, if you're running for president, David, and you espouse these views and you base them on your religious beliefs, I may disagree with them, but you are free to do that. There is nothing in the decision that says the church is going to lose its 501c3 status. There is nothing in the decision that says the church is going to be punished because it's not going to marry gay people. The Catholic Church, for example, women are a protected class under Title VII. They do not allow women to be priests. The Southern Baptist Convention do not allow women to be pastors of their churches. And during the years that the Southern Baptist Convention and the Catholic Church has operated in the United States of America, nobody has ever taken away their 501c3 status, or have they said that they cannot operate as a church in the United States of America.
What about the Catholic Adoption Service or the Presbyterian Adoption Service that says a family is made of a man and a woman?
That is the same principle. What about the Catholic Church that says that women cannot be priests? What about the Catholic Church saying that men have to be celibate? I know all about the Catholics because I was raised Catholic, so everybody knows.
Oh, so was I.
Yeah, and well, we have something in common. But same thing. I talked with a member of the Southern Baptist Convention. Same thing with the Southern Baptist Convention. They have refused services to people of different genders and refused access to people of different genders, which would apply to same-sex couples for a long time. This is a rabbit trail that has been designed to get people worked up for political reasons. What we're going to see in the next 5 years, David, is we're going to be sitting here and we're not going to even be talking about gay marriage because nobody's going to notice the difference.
Now, this is a good segue, Stuart James, into the question. You've been you were in the paper on Tuesday in the Chattanooga Times-Free Press. You had a column, and there was a bit of a noise, an argument made against you by City Council member Chris Anderson, who is proposing a revision of the non-discrimination code in the city for city government. Tell us a little bit about that dispute, and because I think what you're saying just now kind of flows into this matter. What's happening?
I really don't think that it's a dispute. What I did in the opinion piece was what I did was I made a recommendation. I can't get it out right now. No, I made a recommendation that I thought that with all the debate that you and I are having, for example, all the heat that is coming after this decision, what happens? What do the politicians do? They immediately try to enact a piece of legislation in the city that's an anti-discrimination piece of legislation and get it passed related to the LGBT community, okay? All right. And I think the political timing was wrong. And what I was saying in terms of the political timing is that, wait a minute, slow down. You're moving too fast. I think you're playing right into the political rights agenda. The
political rights fear-mongering.
Are there fear-mongering? I'll agree with you on that. Are the fear-mongering?
That's what your conception is. But go ahead.
Yeah, well, my conception is that, yes, it is fear-mongering. It's a politically based fear-mongering tactic that's used to excite the base. And that's what they have to do. And that's what they do to win. And when they do win, and they do it effectively, they do win. Their base gets excited. And so I'm saying, slow down. You're moving too fast. And take a long-term look at the
But one of the comments that was made in defense of Chris Anderson's aggressive proposal is that we can't wait a single day for for means to prevent, you might say, the slaughter of a lug-butt person's rights as an applicant for a job or an employee of the city government. Is there a lot of discrimination in the corporate world, in the government world still, or did that fade away 20 years ago, Stuart James?
Well, I do discrimination work. Yes, there is a lot of discrimination in the workplace.
Against
still.
homosexuals?
Against homosexuals, against women, against blacks. It does exist, and it happens all the time. And I will say this about that commentary. The Tennessee Human Rights Act, which is a wonderful act for people who are discriminated against, has an avenue for same-sex couples and for people, and members who are the LGBTQ community, to assert a cause of action of discrimination. I can't talk about the specifics of the case, but I have a case where I am doing that right now for a gay couple that have been discriminated against.
Stuart James, tell my listener just briefly what that we have about a minute. What does that act entail? How does it give a cause of action, and what are the grounds of that action?
Briefly,
in general,
if you feel that you're discriminated against let's say you're black and you feel you're discriminated against in your workplace, you have a mechanism in the workplace usually to report it. If they don't resolve it, then you can file with the Tennessee Human Rights Commission. They can review it, and if they find that there is discrimination, you're allowed to bring a legal cause of action and recover money damages. That's a real snapshot.
So the finding is really kind of a toothless commission, but its findings would favor a discrimination claim.
Not necessarily. And it's not a toothless commission because it can require employers to change their practices. It can allow a person to
make a lawsuit. Has it done that? I've not read of that.
I have seen that happen. I have seen employers actually change their practices. When you have, for example, under Title VII, EEOC investigation, and when they come into your place of business, and I've represented businesses, and they go through every one of your employment files, and they look at everything that's going on in your practices, you stand up and you take notice. Trust me.
Is that under subpoena, or how do they get access to your files?
It's under Title VII, and when they start initiating an investigation, they can issue subpoenas and documents to require you to produce those files.
This is David Toulis. We're talking with Stuart James, attorney, Democratic activist who's advising the city to slow down in amending its ordinance just now while the uproar is taking place among Christians and conservatives and the right wing. This is David Toulis. Our show is Nuganomics.com. We've got a lot more ahead. I've got some messages I want you to hear. Hang on.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Right now, you can save half off at HotNewsTalkRadio.com. Go to HotNewsTalkRadio.com and click half off for exceptional deals on new and pre-owned unique quality items for Hamilton County residents only. Save half off at Jet's Pizza, golf clubs, coffee, tea, a real sword, jewelry, and much more. It's half off. Go to half off at HotNewsTalkRadio.com right now, then click on half off to save big. Be sure to join us live Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays at 11 a.m. as we bring you lots of fantastic deals right here, AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. HotNewsTalkRadio.com and half off. Surf our site and ride the wave of savings. We've got a table here at Delia's in Soddy Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection, loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas, every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Soddy Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Soddy, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's got third. He's going for second. Earnhardt going for the lead.
The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series is on the Motor Racing Network. Coverage continues Sunday here at Live on the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Check it out live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Hot News Talk 1240.
When my brother and I opened our first Jet's Pizza, we believed if we made the best pizza, customers would find us. So we made fresh dough each day, used fresh toppings, and premium mozzarella cheese. 300-plus stores later, we still do.
Try Jet's famous 8-corner pizza with premium mozzarella cheese and one topping, now just $11.99 for a limited time only. Jet's Pizza, the best pizza in town. 3600 Hickson Pike.
Life is short. Eat better pizza.
Let's get Jet's.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducks. Call now.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
If the South would have won, we'd have had it made. I'd probably run for president of the southern states. The day Elvis passed away would be our national holiday. If the South would have won, we'd have had it made.
NASCAR, Laura Ingram, Dennis Miller, David Toulis, Coast to Coast AM, and CBS Radio News. Chattanooga's news, talk, and sports leader.
News Talk 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. A resignation at the top a day after revelations of much deeper damage than first reported from a hacking involving the government's personnel office.
Director Archuleta did offer her resignation today. She did so of her own volition. She recognizes, as the White House does, that the urgent challenges currently facing the Office of Personnel Management require a manager with a specialized set of skills and experience.
White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest a short while ago, the defense in the Colorado Theater massacre rests its case after trying to show that suspect James Holmes was legally insane and suffering from delusions. At City Hall in New York City, soccer fans, young and old, turning out to cheer the winners of the Women's World Cup after their ticker tape parade. Fox News, we report, you decide.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Toulis.
If you have indoor air pollution, make sure you contact Ducts, the Indoor Air Professionals, formerly known as Duct Busters. This little outfit in Middle Valley will get the mold and the mildew out from that mysterious domain between your HVAC system and your vent. And it'll find the lost aftermarket Lego pieces that your 3-year-old deposited there, and it will not return them. But it is a service that improves the health of the air, the cleanliness of the air in your business or your home. And if you have your house done by Ducts, your dryer vent will be done free. Normally that's about $100, but it will be done at no charge if you have your house checked out and cleaned out inside and out. The number is 876-9907, 876-9907. My name is David Toulis, and we are at Nooganomics.com. We have the idea that if we love our neighbors, we'll buy local. It's a very quaint and very weak idea. And the reason I like to say that is because I think in weakness there's strength. In being oblique about one's efforts, one can succeed. Frontal attacks often don't work. And the idea of local economy is that we defeat and defy and let ourselves be underwhelmed by the national collapse, the pending economic cataclysm from the debt overburden that is going to be a day of reckoning on many fronts. And we just have to weight the trigger. Not sure what that trigger will be, but you should have a local-centric perspective day by day a little bit more. And if you do, you won't lose half of your net worth, which is what probably a lot of people will lose as they lose their market value in the equities and lose their jobs because their employer, a national economy player, is having to make some updates on its staffing needs. We're talking with Stuart James, attorney. He handles truck accidents and discrimination cases and is the former chairman of the Democratic Party of Hamilton County. And he's also a writer. He writes at blog.org. That's blogg.org. And most of his livelihood is from the legal profession, but 10% or so, he says, is from consulting with Democratic candidates. And he's also been, you might have seen his name in the news lately in the Bryant Cochran sentencing. He has also making claims on behalf of the victim in that state oppression case. Angela Gormley is the woman who was abused by by lawless process by state actors. And Stuart James has been at her defense.
I'm going to hire you. You're doing a good job advocating for her.
Tell us, just briefly, tell us about, my listener is interested in abusive state actors. In a nutshell, tell us how Angela Gormley was abused, and then say something about some of the how it is you're representing her, Stuart James.
Sure. And I can't say too much, David, because it's still a pending case. We're in the appellate process on certain issues. But let me give this.
But you're the mouthpiece. You can do it.
I can do it. I can make sure that it works, right? Here's what I just say. This is briefly. My client gets assaulted. My client goes to Judge Cochran. She goes in his chambers. She asks him to issue certain warrants, and what he says is, "I'll give you your warrants if you'll give me something." And the something was justice for sex. And he ultimately was removed by the JQC, the Judicial Qualifications Commission, for doing that. He ultimately underwent a criminal prosecution because he planted drugs on her car, and now he's
with the help of another person,
with the help of 3 other people. And now he is going to prison for 5 years, and that's it in a nutshell.
And that's when I saw your name most recently in the local press.
Yes,
regarding Angela Gormley.
We represent Angela, and what we did was we helped the U.S. Attorney's Office put together the factual basis for their case. And in my opinion, it was Angela who convicted Bryant Cochran, and it was her testimony.
Well, in a nutshell, explain briefly, my listener wants some sort of general advice from you, Stuart James, attorney. How is it that that an officer or state actor acts under color of law? What's the difference between acting under law and acting under color of law? Where's that line? Why is that line important?
That is a really good question, because that line is sometimes really blurred and you don't know what happens. In this case, for example, when there is some law out there that says when Judge Cochran is in his chambers with Angela Gormley saying, "I will take sex to issue your warrants," that he is not acting under color of law, and that he is immune.
Well, no, he is acting under color of law, but not under law.
Well, under both. There's some law about that. Yes, I'll give you that distinction.
Go ahead.
I will give you that distinction. It'll make it easier, because I was about ready to go down this road that was going to get very complex. So I'll go with the simplicity. So he's acting under the color of state law, but he also may have immunity. And under that circumstance, there is a part of the opinion that we are appealing that said that he had immunity for those acts. However, if you jump over to the criminal side, that immunity may or may not apply, depending on how far the criminal prosecution goes. He was not prosecuted for the sex proposal for. He was prosecuted for planting drugs on Angela Gormley's car and using his position as judge to orchestrate that under color of state law.
Okay, so again, I'm still not clear with Stuart James what color of law means. So there's law. An officer is not personally, don't worry about it. An officer is not personally liable for any wrong or tort if he's acting within his authority.
Within his authority.
But if he's acting outside of his authority, then he's personally responsible for some kind of oppression or abuse.
Yes, correct.
Can you elaborate on that? Is that
let
fair?
Let me give you a distinction. Because I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible. Judges have to operate under a code of ethics. They have the legal duty to do that. Okay. And that is a law that is in place that impacts judges in the state of Georgia, okay? In this case, Judge Cochran used his position to have someone wrongfully elected, used his judicial powers to make sure that the drugs were planted on his
wrongfully arrested, you mean?
Arrested. I said elected, didn't I? Well, that was a Freudian slip. And to have her arrested and take away her liberties, where he was using his actual authority as a judge under color of state law, which rose to a criminal act. Violation of the ethical rules is illegal for judges. Doing what he did to Angela Gormley and planting the drugs, that is breaking the law. He's liable for that criminally.
Because he's acting in his personal capacity,
yes,
effectively.
Yes, effectively.
But under the pretense of being lawful, that makes it even worse.
That makes it worse.
That's worse than if that were done in an office or in a bar.
Yes, it's much worse.
Yeah, okay.
Well, you know what? Look, here's what Judge Murphy said, and I've known Judge Murphy for a long time. Judge Murphy said that Judge Cochran, what he did destroys any confidence that we may have in the judiciary, because what he did was he used the power of his position to take something he was not entitled to take. And when he didn't get it, he tried to put somebody in jail for it and tried to ruin their lives for it. And that's just something that judges should not be doing.
Well, has not Obergefell done something of the same thing, ruin the integrity of the federal judiciary? In that decision, the federal court, which earlier had argued from a states' rights basis to overturn the Defense of Marriage Act now turned against the states' rights theory, which was the pivot of that earlier decision, and now says, well, the states really don't have authority to define marriage. This has never been in our jurisprudence, our purview. Marriage has always been a state issue. Marriage is not a federal question. Now it's a federal question. Has not that opinion rightly ruined the fair standing of that federal department?
You know, that if I were on the opposition, that argument that you made right there is the proper argument to be making about that decision. Because what I thought in regards to the decision, a large part of me thought that the Supreme Court may not do this. And the Supreme Court may go, especially with the makeup of our court, may say, you know what, this is a states' rights issue. And I was a little bit surprised that they did not do that. And that issue in and of itself is hard to balance because the Supreme Court has been very pro-state rights in prior opinions, as you adequately pointed out. So I have to basically say that that is a legitimate concern, and I have not looked at it and I have not analyzed it enough on that viewpoint because I've been busy doing other things in regards to that opinion.
Well, is it fair to say that what is the power, what is the effect or punch or claim of an unjust law? Is an unconstitutional law binding? Is an opinion which is a usurpacious opinion, an opinion which usurps the authority of our it demolishes important structures in our federal polity? Is that not something which should be rightly ignored if it's unconstitutional? Can you have an unconstitutional federal high court opinion, Stuart James?
That's another interesting analysis. I don't think that you can under our system. You cannot have a federal unconstitutional opinion. I'm going to give you two. Let's talk about gay marriage and let's talk about Bush versus Gore. The same kind of arguments are being made in relation to both of those decisions that the Supreme Court did was basically unconstitutional. Why are you messing with this, Supreme Court, and you're messing with this when there's this area that you say is C, or A, B, and C. And a lot of people make that argument. But under our system, the Supreme Court has the last word on constitutional issues. However, as I said before, that does not bar the legislature from taking certain actions. For example, there is a national effort right now, I think underway, from what I read this morning, about religious freedom and about enacting legislation to protect churches from what many people think is an opinion that intrudes on their right to express their religious freedom.
Well, it seems to me, Stuart James, that anyone who takes the oath of office to uphold the federal Constitution, A, and B, a state constitution, is as much obliged and has as much right to interpret the Constitution as a federal court jurist who has a lifetime appointment. So Bill Knowles, I would say, because he took the oath of office, makes that Constitution live as it's written until he's ousted or not elected. And his understanding of that law is as valid as Justice Kennedy's. And yet somehow every lawyer would tell Bill Knowles, no, you can't make the Constitution live. You just have to obey what somebody in an alien jurisdiction says about it.
You're entitled to that opinion. I don't think that's what the law says. And I don't think that's what the system says. I think what the system is that the federal Constitution is a document that binds every state together. And when the federal Constitution provides you a right, protects you a right, i.e. gay marriage, the right to get married, which is really what we're talking about, then you have to abide by the federal Constitution. Also, if you look at Bill Knowles' job description, his job does not require him to interpret any law.
It's ministerial only, right?
Well,
hold on. It's administrative, but it's ministerial. When it's ministerial, what does that imply? Let me ask you, what does ministerial imply?
Basically, he has to execute the duties of his office as they are defined.
Right. So he's a minister.
He is a minister. He's an administrator. I don't take that definition the way you're headed.
To administer, even the word administrator has the word minister in it.
I don't buy that definition.
And that is to say that like the gospel minister in your church, Stuart James, he has a duty to minister what God gives to men by the way of the word, right? And so therefore a certain faithfulness is required of your church's minister to administer the sacraments, administer the word of God to the people of God in your fellowship. He is a minister because his duty is not his own. His duty is given to him by a distant authority, God.
Right? I don't buy into your correlation between religion, because if we talk about religion, we talk about the duties of pastors. In some churches, pastors have the right to interpret the Bible, to put their interpretation before their flock and ask their flock to follow them. And even within the Baptist church, we know that Church A and Church D may interpret that Bible totally different. We know within the Baptist church, I'm not going to go to the Catholic church today, the Baptist church, that those two churches may act entirely different. They are not merely a ministerial or administrative person in that church. As a matter of fact, in some churches, the ministers are actually given a certain authority according to church bylaws, and those bylaws are often written because of the Bible, to actually make church doctrine, i.e.,
well, these are innovators and people who are acting outside their constitutions. In the Christian church, the Constitution is the Bible. In the state of Tennessee, the Constitution is what has been amended a couple times, and which Mr. Knowles, Sheriff Hammond, and Mayor Burr all agree to uphold. It is a ministerial function, and therefore he's a constitutional officer. Therefore, he did swear to uphold the Constitution. Therefore, the claims of the Constitution upon this humble clerk are as valid as the opinion of the High Court.
No, they're not, because the opinion of the High Court has said that the provision in this Tennessee Constitution is unconstitutional in and of itself, and it violates the federal Constitution. Basic law for all of you who are maybe interested. The Tennessee Constitution may give greater rights than are under the Constitution of the United States, but they may not give less rights than are under the Constitution of the United States. And here's how it works. The Supreme Court just said the Constitution allows gay marriage in every state of the Union. That right cannot be infringed upon, cannot be limited. So basically, the constitutional amendment that was passed in Tennessee is now unconstitutional under the federal Constitution.
Well, Stuart James, you are a defender of what's called judicial supremacy. However, our system is not either. Our system is not one of judicial supremacy, but of constitutional supremacy.
You know, I think that it is one of not of constitutional supremacy, is one of the Constitution binding each state together. And I will say this, I think our constitutional interpretation has been expanded over the years, and it is not necessarily what the Constitution was originally designed to do, but the Constitution was also designed to be a fluid, interpretive document to adapt with the times. And it has done so, and it has worked very well.
Stuart James, my listener has a question for you that I wanted to throw at you. He's troubled by, when he first heard about you, well, he's heard about you before, but when he first heard about you most recently, it was last year, when you were proposing on behalf of Chris Anderson a searching inquiry into the religious motivations of some of Chris Anderson's detractors in his district who wanted to have a plebiscite to oust him. They view your efforts to support him and things that you published, in fact, motions that you submitted, I think, to Chancery. Was it Chancery?
No, it was in Judge Hollingsworth's court in Circuit Court.
So it was in Circuit Court. Okay. They heard about that. They read about that. And what they objected to was your desire to have a searching inquiry into the reasons why these people, largely Christians, some dissatisfied, for other reasons dissatisfied with Chris Anderson, and you were proposing a kind of prior restraint. Your perspective was of political triggers, of kind of a speech code, and you were not letting the people have their own reasons. Somehow you were going to argue that they had illegal reasons for ousting a Poofter council member.
No. I didn't say they had illegal reasons for ousting him. A recall can be done for a wide variety of reasons. I didn't say that. What I said is they didn't follow the law. The law has certain requirements. They didn't have the signatures. The petition was not in proper. Let me finish. The petition was not in proper form. You have these requirements that you have to follow, and they knew they weren't following the law. In fact, it was so bad that the TBI ultimately initiated an investigation, even as to the way the signatures were gathered, because some of the signatures were fraudulent, and I challenged those signatures as being fraudulent. So if you present a fraudulent Bible in your church and you say that God signed this Bible and it's not his signature, it's the same thing, So what the religious
answer my question.
I did not do any of that. But what I did was I enforced the law as they were. Then you can't find a pleading where I said any of those words, because that is a certain segment of the religious right, i.e. Charlie Wysong talking. And Charlie has said this kind of thing without basis or fact. I would be if
we all read your arguments before the court.
And my arguments before the court were based upon what the law was. There was no agenda politically. I was representing a client, and this recall was wrong. It was done wrong, and everybody knows it was done wrong.
Fill us in, Stuart James. Is it possible for there to be an illegal reason, a reason that's not lawful, for a voter and a group of voters with which to demand a recall?
Yes, there is. Because
Explain that.
Because the reasons for recall is defined by state statute. And there are certain issues that you are allowed to recall an officer of an officer of the Constitution.
Name some of them.
Gosh, I wish I'd been more prepared for this. For example, failing to perform the duties of their let me put it this way: a felony, okay, or an impeachable offense, lying, embezzlement, that kind of thing. Because you don't like someone because they're gay, does not give you the right to recall that person.
So that those are to Charlie Weissong and the Christian ministers and the shopkeepers' objections to this man being a homosexual
is not a basis to recall.
Those
it is not.
So your idea was, well, we have to take a sort of a census of opponents of Chris Weissong, of Chris Anderson, and if a certain number are pro-gay, well, that's going to be strengthening our argument that this is an illegal recall effort.
Well, what they did, and this was my argument under the discrimination laws, under the Tennessee Human Rights Act and under Title VII, is what they did is they put forth a discriminatory purpose for removing him from office using the recall statute. Now, there's a difference between using the recall and going to the ballot box. Now, they are free to go into their churches. They're free to talk about it all that they want to. And if they convince a voter that they should vote against Chris Anderson or me because we're Democrats, that's fine. But they were using the statutory scheme for a discriminatory purpose, and Charlie Weissong and others have admitted that.
Well, Stuart James,
that was my theory. Whether it would have worked or not, I don't know, because the recall didn't happen.
My listener is anxious about the future on account of the pogroms that we are reading about are ahead, and we already see samples. We already see samples of them. The Kleins in Oregon are being told that they can't talk about the reasons they won't bake cakes for homosexuals, and they're being done for $130,000. There's a story about a pastor who asked a gay bakery for a Christian cake, and he's being it is proposed he be charged with a crime for this. And so there's a sense of prior restraint being brought on by the gay lobby. And you're a kind of a libertarian, it seems to me. So I'm wondering how there's a conflict in you might say your jurisprudential ethic, it seems to me, between free speech, a free exercise of religion, versus the enforcement of a kind of a cultural Marxism, which the gay rights theory is part of.
Well, I don't agree.
That.
I don't agree that there's any cultural Marxism that the gay rights theory is with. I just don't agree with that premise whatsoever. So I'm not going to even address that premise. But my obligation as a lawyer is to interpret the law and to enforce the law and to represent my client. And that means there is some level of interpretation, and then the other side does the same thing. Unfortunately, what we don't have is we do not have a judge who interpreted my position versus the recall position, which I really wanted to happen, to tell you the truth. I would have loved to appeal it. I believe that I was right. But if a court told me I was wrong, guess what? I would have accepted that decision. I might have been angry about it.
Well, you would have appealed it.
Well, I'm talking about, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to appeal it. I mean, no matter what Judge Hollingsworth did, it was a really novel situation to be in. So if the Supreme Court of Tennessee or the United States had interpreted it and they told me that that was the law, I would have to follow the law.
Well, this is David Toulis. We're here at Nuganomics.com. We're talking with Stuart James, attorney, and we are asking about Obergefell, the decision which deconstructed marriage. Now, I've got one more question for you, Stuart.
I disagree with that, but that's okay.
Okay. All right. What about common law marriage? Common law marriage is when my listener marries a woman of a right and not by permission, not by license. Only statutory marriages are in view in Obergefell. Common law marriages, of course, can't be touched. Common law marriages are not in view.
Some states recognize them. Some states
does Tennessee recognize common law marriage?
It does not. It has not historically. I don't know what it's.
What is common law marriage?
You could tell me better than I could tell you. I'm not really. I mean, you have to cohabitate. You have to. Let me put it this way. I could give you all the elements. You have to appear that you are actually married. And what it does is it includes everything from the sex part of marriage, everything to the commitment part of marriage, and it's not necessarily a religious thing, but you have to appear and act as though you were married.
So, so you're mentioning three of the elements. There's consent, capacity, which would be age. Consent would be she says yes.
Yeah, 15-year-old cannot be.
Yeah, a 13-year-old probably can't. And so holding, there's consummation or penetration.
Yes.
There's cohabitation. You mentioned that.
I did.
And then holding yourself, telling people that you're married, making yourself out to be married.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the appearance of marriage. That's the best, I think, the simplest way to put it.
Where people understand you to be married.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, why do people get married under license when they're free to do it by right?
In Tennessee, because we don't recognize common law marriage, and and certain.
Well, why do they do it in Alabama?
Which allows I'm going to answer your question. Okay, all right. You can weigh in. And in some instances, it's because of religion. For example, being a Catholic, you and I know that the Catholic Church does not condone couples living together who are not married and having sex. We know that to be true. So, as a Catholic, you and I would be getting married.
I'm not a Catholic, but go ahead.
But you were raised Catholic, right? Yeah. Or I should say former Catholics. Let's say that. So as a person who was raised Catholic, you know that to be true. So for religion, sometimes it's just an ideal of
common law marriage is not just people shacking up and trying to look married. There's a difference between shacking up and common law marriage.
There's you're
using an old
No, but,
saw about that.
No, I'm not really, because what I'm doing is explaining people's motivations as I understand them. I got married because I loved my wife and I wanted to make the commitment.
Under statute.
Under statute.
Why did you have to get permission to marry her? Couldn't you have gone and exercised a right to Bridgeport, Alabama?
If I wanted to, I could have. That would have been my choice. But I chose to make the decision that I wanted to get the marriage license. I wanted it to be legal. I wanted to have it on the wall, and so did my wife. And we wanted to go to the church, and we wanted to get married. And that was our choice. That was our right to make that choice. And to me, this is a personal aspect of it. To me, I understand common law I understand common law marriage, but it wasn't for me. And it wasn't for my wife, and we decided to make that commitment. Does that make sense?
So at least you thought about it.
I thought about it a lot. I thought about all of our options a lot. We dated in law school. I knew her throughout law school. I was here, she was there. We dated while she was there. We talked about it for a long time.
What's your wife's name?
Vicky. And she, I would have been nuts not to marry her, number one. And she and I made the decision that we were committed to each other in heart, mind, body, and soul. And we wanted to do it. Maybe the legal way, because we're lawyers and we're going to do all that regulation stuff.
You mean not legal? You mean the statutory way?
I'll say
through the state, getting permission from the state to do something.
Which is the legal way.
Well, Stuart James,
common law marriage is not necessarily.
How can my listener contact you if he has a legal question?
423-756-3646, extension 106.
That's too fast. One more time.
423-756-3646, extension 106.
Thanks for joining me, Stuart.
No problem.
This is David Toulis. Our show is Newgonomics.com. We cover local economy and the free market. I do appreciate your giving me a few minutes of your time. We're going to have to talk Monday about some things I didn't get to today, but we are wanting you to prosper and to gain in every way. This is David Toulis. Thank you.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Arnie Guest Goldsmith, Chattanooga's gold standard in quality, selection, and beautifully handcrafted jewelry. Arnie Guest Goldsmith has 7 jewelers on site and ready to assist you in the design of your one-of-a-kind diamond piece. Arnie Guest Goldsmith, Chattanooga's gold standard in quality, selection, and beautifully handcrafted jewelry. Arnie Guest Goldsmith has 7 jewelers on site and ready to assist you in the design of your one-of-a-kind diamond piece to the perfect affordable handcrafted gem. From just $20 silver earrings to your dream elegant work of art to adorn your finger, neck, and wrist, impressing your friends and family, Arnie Guest Goldsmith will ensure that your budget is met. Planning the perfect wedding or a special event? Then let Arnie Guest Goldsmith assist you in choosing or designing the keepsake that will last you a lifetime. All of Arnie Guest Goldsmith repairs and crafting are done in-house, so you can be rest assured that it will meet or exceed your expectations. For over 30 years, Arnie Guest Goldsmith